I'm a third generation farmer. My dad started commercial dairy in the late 50s, early 60s. We went from a stock farm where we had a little bit of everything to strictly registered Guernseys. I took over in about 1990, and we've grown the business today to have 2 dairies in milking registered Guernseys and Jerseys at this point.
Tell me a little bit about how you've gone from not just being a milk producer, but also now a milk processor.
Back about 10 years ago, I started toying with the idea of taking my high quality milk that was going to a fluid processor and trying to make it into an artisan product. I formed a company about 7 years ago to look at making cheese, and stumbled into drinkable yogurt, which is our leading product now. Again, because I just didn't feel like I was getting the value out of my milk that I could potentially get by manufacturing my own product. It's been a very grueling process. We had no idea what we were getting into. We have waded through it, but creating the product was great. That was probably the easy part of it. It's pushing it to the marketplace in enough volumes to make the numbers work. And that has been the excruciating part of it. We had no idea that we'd have to manage distribution. We'd have to manage marketing on the volume that we're managing it. We'd have to manage retail. And then I did it before I had 3 kids. And that's probably been the most painful part of it, has been the time away from the family.
Tell me how you stumbled into the drinkable yogurt product itself.
Well, we built a cheese plant, and the folks that I had working with me at the time had brought me a drinkable yogurt, which I'd never even heard of. And we had experimented with it. And once I'd seen that, I knew that's the path that we needed to take. And we've now at this point have perfected a process that allows us to manufacture the yogurt that we make today. And there's nothing like it. I mean, it's very creamy, low fat. We use real fruit, very little sugar. And again, it really amplifies the value of Jersey and Guernsey milk.
So what's the non-sexy part of marketing a value-added product?
It is the hoops that you have to jump through to get it to the marketplace. Once that product leaves our dock, we have to push it, and we have to follow it, and we have to lead it to the consumer. And that's been very difficult because logistics, transportation, and once it lands on the shelf, you have to have somebody there to make sure it's being rotated, make sure it got there in the way that you want it, in the condition that you want it to be there in. And then you have to present it to the consumer, because just because it's on the shelf doesn't mean that the consumer's going to pick it up. When we converse with those people, we realize that they're not just food hippies or whatever you want to call them. They're truly concerned about what we're consuming, and they realize that what we have consumed to this point may be directly correlated with our health problems in this country. So that's been the great part about what we've done.
You've explained that even though that consumer is very educated, you still do some education as they come into the stores. Tell me about some of the things that you talk to them about.
They don't know the difference between organic and natural. They don't know the difference between homogenized and non-homogenized. They don't know the difference between pasture-fed and non-pasture-fed. They don't know that there's 7 breeds of dairy cattle. Even though they're highly educated, they don't know a lot about dairy. And so we really spend a lot of time telling them about how milk is produced. And once they understand that, they're your customer.
We love Lucky Layla Farms, and what I wanted to share with everybody is The quality of their product is unbelievable, and once you've had the milk from their happy cows, it's hard to ever go back to drinking anything else. We also like the fact that Lucky Layla is a local family-owned farm, and we live in a big metropolitan area, and to be able to enjoy something that wonderful is a great, great gift.
So you do sell raw milk here. Tell me how you got into the process of selling raw milk. I mean, how did that come about?
Customer demand. You know, they came buying the yogurt and they wanted milk. And I've never wanted to process milk because it's a commodity, very hard to compete. Whereas if you go to the yogurt aisle, there's only one good drinkable yogurt, and that's Lucky Layla Farms. But we did it because of consumer demand. You know, my wife got enough feedback from customers wanting to do raw milk, and so we did it out of her suggestion, and it's been really good for us. We sell quite a bit.
Tell me how you would describe to other dairy producers the typical raw milk consumer.
In this part of the country, they again are educated. There are several ethnicities that come to purchase milk because they're from parts of the world where raw milk was the norm. So that's a large percentage of our customers that are foreign folks that have moved here for work and have seeked out raw milk. But again, it's people that are concerned about what's in their milk and where it comes from, and they want to meet the farmer too. That's the big thing.
Obviously, you believe in a dairyman's right to sell raw milk.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your opinions about how the raw milk transaction with the consumer should be regulated, if at all.
I mean, it is their right to sell milk as long as it's done the right way. I don't feel like it's their right to take milk and deliver it to some dark alleyway in the city and distribute it out of the trunk of their car like what has been done. But I do feel like it's, you know, their right to dispose of the product the way that they see fit in order for survival. I do feel like there needs to be more regulation. It's not nearly regulated enough. We regulate ourselves more than what the state will regulate us. We pass out a flyer to our consumer so that they can do their own homework, because we do believe there's some health benefits to it. But I'm not going to tell them that's why they should drink it. They should drink it because it's a fit for their family. I don't want to make claims about raw milk that, you know, influence their decision making. That needs to be their decision. But, you know, my thought process in doing that is for my own protection. They need to know what they're getting into. And we even go as far as telling them to consult with a physician, you know, to make sure that that raw milk is right for them.
Tell me a little bit about the dairy herd itself and how it's changing as the dairy has expanded.
Well, we milk Guernseys and Jerseys. Yeah, we started out with the Guernseys, and there was a point in the 90s that we wanted to add to our herd, and you couldn't just go and buy a load of Guernseys, so we did invest in a herd of Jerseys from East Texas, and they have grown a little more rapidly than what the Guernseys have, and we really like them. The Jersey's just a great cow to work with, and they do have comparable milk as far as quality components, but the efficiencies in grazing, I mean, there's no two other breeds that can graze like a Guernsey and Jersey. I mean, when it's 100 degrees, you still got cows in the pasture. I'm not going to say it doesn't affect them, the heat, but I think it affects them a lot less, and that's real important in this part of the country. I mean, you got to have a heat tolerant animal.
Why did you build the new dairy in the location where you did?
For grazing. We had looked out west where, you know, the only way you can survive is with center pivot irrigation, and we decided to go east into East Texas where there's 45 inches of annual rainfall, and the services are there, and for the grass. I mean, you can grow a tremendous amount of grass in East Texas.
As a dairy producer who is used to working with Guernseys, what differences have you seen between the two breeds?
You know, there's some breeding efficiencies there that maybe are not with the Guernseys. But there's also the trade-off with there's a little attitude in a Jersey that maybe is not in a Guernsey, but it's a good aggressive kind of attitude. And so they both take different kind of managers. You know, and they take a different kind of facility. You know, you need to make sure that your facility is set up for Jerseys because they do require a little less as far as milking parlor, you know, size-wise. Two of the features that we have here in the parlor that you don't find everywhere. We have an indexing brisket bar that allows us to accommodate two breeds, the Jerseys and the Guernseys, because there's obvious size differences. We do segregate the Jerseys away from the Guernseys, so this brisket bar, when we have Jerseys in here, allows us to push them to the butt plate, which gives us more control in the milking process. It allows us to have less forward and reverse issues when we're milking those cows and gives us a little tighter control. The back flush is another feature that we added in. Once the exit is opened, then we have an iodine back flush that comes through the claws and rinses it before it's attached to the next cow. It goes through a water rinse, an iodine rinse, and then an air blow so that there's no liquid left in it. And we feel that's real good for the prevention of transfer of any kind of mastitis that we maybe don't catch when we're stripping cows. I chose a herringbone. I've always milked in a herringbone, but I chose it because, one, some of the Guernsey cows that we have that are maybe 12 years old, we didn't think that we would have a lot of luck getting them to turn to a 90 degree. And we wanted to preserve those genetics and not dispose of them because they wouldn't accommodate to a parallel. The other thing too is, as cowmen, we like to see the side and the flank of the cow because we pick up any kind of possible health issues by being able to, when we're milking them, to be able to look at the rib and the flank because, you know, we can tell a lot about what they have been or haven't been eating. Along with meters, you know, we have meters here and can catch the pounds.
In addition to some of the unique features Todd included in the parlor of his new dairy, Todd explained some of the other facility features he included at the dairy to combat heat stress.
On this barn here, we elevated the roof more than what you normally would. This is 20 foot on one side and 22 on the other. We took the south, everything here runs east and west. That's something else that I didn't tell you about. And the reason we did that is for shade. If you run it north and south, the west sun will cook whatever's underneath the barn. So everything here runs east and west, so we take advantage of the shade with the sun setting in the west. So with this running east and west, we took the south roof and raised it to a 1 in 12 pitch to where we can take advantage of the south wind, which you can feel now. It's coming out of the south, which predominantly comes out of the south. And what it does is it takes the heat out of the roof and moves it out the ridge vent. The north side still at a 3 in 12 to hopefully help block against some of the north wind that we might have. But that is one thing that we feel like is an advantage here because we have the roof high enough that we rarely would ever need any fans. We have, on this hill, we have a constant flow of air. When I chose this location for a dairy barn, I liked that I could have a 360 degree view. And so we tried to maintain that with a lot of glass in the milking parlor. And then standing where we are now, you can almost see every animal that we're milking here. So when it comes to heat detection or just general management, you don't have to run from pasture to pasture like I did in the other place. You can stand in one location and see almost the whole operation. To help combat the 100 degree heat that we have 3 months of the year here, instead of having misters and fans and confinement, we wanted to still be able to pasture. And for us to do that and maintain breeding efficiency through the summer and milk efficiency, we built cooling ponds. They're 15 or better feet deep, and on the sides we have concrete ramps, almost just like a boat ramp, to where when the cows walk in onto the ramp, they'll turn around and stand on the ramp and point back out, and that's where they get their cooling. During the summertime, you can see a constant flow of cows from the cooling ponds to the pasture, just on a regular basis. I mean, they're coming and going constantly in the cooling ponds, and we found that to be very beneficial to fight the heat.
Todd's research into his new facility didn't stop with just efficiencies for his milking herd, but for his young stock too. A longtime friend suggested an idea he's incorporated in his calf raising area.
I'm going to mention Dr. Hank Spencer, because 20 years ago, he got me to raising calves on gravel. Then we would just take 10 inches of gravel, spread it out, put the calves on it. The idea was that the water and the moisture could percolate down through the rocks and then run off somewhere. And it was a good dry environment on a regular basis. We built a rock box. Instead of putting it on top of the ground, we dug down in with a 1% slope, filled it with river gravel. Has no fines in it. You have to make sure it's a river gravel with no fines so that it never packs up. And again, a 1% slope going to a lagoon to accommodate environmental impact. And we just think it's a great way to raise the calves, you know. We pick a little bit of manure here and there. Everything else is just washed down into the rock. And then with that 1% slope, it drains to the lagoon.
Would you recommend other dairy producers do what you've done, build this vertically integrated business? And if so, what kind of a temperament do you think that dairy producer needs to have?
I would not recommend it until they talk to me first. But no, it's a 900-pound gorilla. To do it on the scale that we're doing it, you know, we're trying to push product all over the country because that's what, you know, sustains our size of operation. But, you know, you can't do it with 10 cows either. So no, I wouldn't recommend it. You know, we went into it not knowing marketing, we went into it not knowing distribution, we went into it not knowing processing. You know, it looked like a great dream. I don't regret doing it, but I wouldn't recommend it for the light at heart. It takes too much time away from your dairy, and then of course, not to mention the family. And we would not be where we are now without, you know, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, a 35-year best friend, some really dedicated employees, which are, you know, it's a huge issue with any company is employees. And so they all believe in the product and they know that it's going to be a huge success. And without those ingredients, we don't recommend it.
Todd told us his yogurt business was close to reaching the tipping point, where it would move beyond just breaking even and start being profitable by itself. Even without its success, Todd says he'd find a way to stay in the dairy business.
And I'll do anything to keep my dairy going. And I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. I love it. I'm involved in it myself all the time. It's not like I'm an absentee owner that you know, has a whole crew of guys that are working for me. I'm involved in it on a day-to-day basis, and I love it. I mean, it's a lifestyle, and I don't know what I would do different.